Anybody online, please go ahead.
Maya Java Nikachanam Anjana Dokshajam Avyayam Na Lakshase Muda Drisha Nato Natya Dharo Yata Maya Java Nikachanam Anjana Dokshajam Avyayam Na Lakshase Drisha Nato Natya Dharo Yata
Maya Javanik Achanam Ajnadhokshajam Avyayam Na Lakshase Mudadrisha Nato Natyadharo Yata. Hare Krishna, thank you. Thank you. Took a look at the word for word. Maya, deluded. Javanika, curtain. Ajna, covered by Ajna, ignorance. Adokshijam, beyond the range of material conception. Transcendental. Avyayam, irreproachable. Na, not. Lakshise, observed. Mood drisha, by the foolish observer. Nataha, artist. Nachadana, dressed as a player. Yata, as. Being beyond the range of limited sense perception, you are the eternal, irreproachable factor covered by the curtain of deluding energy. Is there something wrong? Oh, when did we do it? Oh, I didn't, doesn't matter. We'll go to 20. Is no, you are invisible to the foolish observer exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. Beautiful. No, this is perfectly fine. I wasn't aware of Thursday. So we'll look at verse 20. I'll just read it myself and we'll do it. Tata Paramahamshanam Munina Amalatmanam Bhakti Yoga Vidhan Artam Katam Prashemahi Striyaha. Look at the word for word to Tata. Besides that, Paramahamsanam of the advanced transcendentalist, Muninam of the great philosophers or mental speculators, Amala Atmanam, those whose minds are competent to discern between spirit and matter, Vidhan Artam, for executing, Katam, Pashina, can be observed. He, certainly, Striyaha, women, translation. You yourself descend to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service and to the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. How then can we women know you perfectly? Oh, this is why you wanted me to go to this verse. Very good. So we'll repeat it. You yourself dressed to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service.
You yourself descend to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service.
And to the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators. Who are purified by being able to discriminate between spirit and matter. Sorry. How then can we women know you perfectly? Purport by Prabhupada. Even the greatest philosophical speculators cannot have access to the region of the Lord. It is said that in the Upanishads that the supreme truth, the absolute personality of Godhead, is beyond the range of thinking by the greatest brain. Oh, sorry. He is beyond the range of thinking power of the greatest philosopher. He is unknowable by great learning or by the greatest brain. He is knowable only by one who has his mercy. Others may go on thinking about him for years together, yet he is unknowable. This very fact is corroborated by the queen, who is playing the part of an innocent woman. Women in general are unable to speculate like philosophers, but they are blessed by the Lord because they believe at once in the superiority and almightiness of the Lord, and thus they offer obeisances without reservation. The Lord is so kind that he does not show special favor only to one who is a great philosopher. He knows the sincerity of the purpose. For this reason only, women generally assemble in great number in any sort of religious function. In every country and in every sect of religion, it appears that the women are more interested than the men. The simplicity of acceptance of the Lord's authority is more effective than showy, insincere religious fervor. Read it one more time. Isn't that beautiful? That's why he wanted me to advance. Tata Paramahamsa Namuninam Avalatmanam Bhakti Yoga Vidhanartam Kantam Pashehi Striha. You yourself descend to propagate the transcendental sides of devotional service unto the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators, who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. How then can we women know you perfectly? That's my Sri Guru Namaha. So it's very perfect because it glorifies mental speculators, which is quite rare. But it says the mental speculator, they can discriminate between spirit and matter. So this is not a bad way to start your journey into understanding what is the absolute truth. But then here it is negated by the idea, how can women know you perfectly? And it says the simplicity of women who can accept the Lord's authority is more effective than showy, insincere religious fervor. So it's a very incredible verse. I was actually originally looking at verse 20, then when I heard Prabhupada's lecture yesterday, I was so enthused to give a further few footnotes to it. But all of this is, and it was one paragraph in Veda Vyasa's, you can say, talk, and many of the sentences, even though they are separated in terms of different verses, they really are one thought. And so all of these thoughts are connected. All of this is related. And if we, like I always say, almost virtually every time I speak, if we take these verses out of context, we will misunderstand them. We will misunderstand the reference to women. We will misunderstand, the main idea, because we've taken it out of context. Just like the Gita, I take one verse out of context, and or I take it as it is. And then later on, Krishna actually contradicts some of his ideas. He might say, I'm in no one's heart. Everybody's only with me. But then later on he says, I'm in everyone's heart. You see? So we have to have an overview of what is being said, what it is being read. It's just like this. We understand this in terms of prayers of Queen Kunti. So if we think it is something else, then we may be mistaken by what is being said here, because it comes from a particular perspective. And Prabhupada is emphasizing that perspective, that women usually cannot articulate philosophical concepts. Of course, this is one of the controversies about Prabhupada making these type of statements that have been argued back and forth. But if you see for yourself, obviously I'm not going to say what Prabhupada says is not true. But when you see for yourself, most women don't want to become philosophers. You see, they don't want to become philosophers. So, because women are different from men. I mean, if you cannot recognize that we're both human, but there's such a great difference, there's a great overlap, but there's also a beautiful difference that makes, men special. If women are special, then men are special, you see, because they are, there are yin and yang, the feminine and the masculine. Or they're like, you can say, Prakriti and Purusha. You see, Purusha is a person. Prakriti is also a person in a sense. But you can say Purusha is what we call in Western philosophy the one, and Prakriti is the many. So, but if there's nothing but an overlap, because if you didn't have one, you wouldn't have many. So the many can collapse into one, and the one can open into the many, and this is what the world is all about. And can you imagine that of all the human beings, nobody has the same DNA? I mean, can you imagine how we are made in such a way that my fingertip is different from everybody else's in the world? Can you? It's inconceivable. And I think it hasn't been proven any other way. So the uniqueness of each individual, and what is that representing, that uniqueness of each individual? The uniqueness of Krishna. He's the most unique, even though we might say he has all the features of a Godhead, or if you could say he's one of the 10 avatars, of course, you can say one of the avatars, but because he has so many unique features that he is the original, the Adi Purush avatar. He's the original avatar. And this is why also when Jayadev, the great poet, proposed the Das avatar based on scripture, of course, Krishna was there, of course, and he was taken out and elevated to the original avatar, and Balaram was put into his place. Isn't that beautiful? So we have a sense of humor about these things because things are always changing. And now we also say Lord Chaitanya is directly the Godhead himself. But it's not that these things are apparent. They're not apparent. It's all obscure. It's like that word that was used in the previous report. It's obscure. Or the other day I heard Prabhupada saying that the actual living entity is an abstruse concept because you cannot see the living entity. We can see that you're alive by your motion and by your responses to the environment, etc. But we don't see the spirit soul, but we see everything by how do you see the cause? You see the cause by the effect. So all of us are unique, and this is the effect of the cause, which is Krishna. So here, Krishna was in the last paragraph or last verse. He was compared to an actor. It's very, very beautiful, and the two words that Prabhupada used in the purport is very nice. One is the player, and one is the actor. Now, for us, what is the difference between player and actor? It's obviously the same. But Prabhupada uses these words, the player and the actor. So he didn't say the person and the actor, but the player and the actor. It's very significant because a player is an actor and an actor is a player. It's very, very beautiful. So my final thought was today, meditating on these three verses actually, is that we are obscure, we are confused by both the player and the actor. Prabhupada says we are confused by the player as an actor because he's all dressed up and so much different paraphernalia there to obscure who actually that is. But we are also confused about who is the player. And that is the idea of the two types of Maya, Yoga Maya and Mahamaya. Mahamaya obscures both. You could say obscures both, the player and the actor. I don't know who is God, and I don't know who I am either. I have no idea. One in the many, I can have philosophical understanding, but no personal realization. But in the spiritual world, Krishna is also not understood as Bhagavan, he's a player. So he is covered by Yoga Maya. If he's not covered by Yoga Maya, there's no charm. Just like in Vaikuntha, there's less charm than in Golok. As a matter of fact, Vaikuntha is not considered very charming because so many of the inhabitants look like Vishnu himself. You can hardly distinguish between Vishnu, the old formal 4 arms, strolling about. There's some charming things. It says the queens to attract Krishna or to attract Vishnu in that area. It says they try to look very beautiful and so on. But that mood isn't there. That mood of Krishna becoming attracted to the jivas is there in the Puranas, in the Srimad Bhagwatam. So this is why we're studying this with such acute attention to understand how is Krishna God? Like if somebody asks you, they walk in the temple, they say, how is Krishna God? Then you point to the deity, say, look, what do you mean, how? There he is. And I was reading something very nice, Prabhupada talking about the deity. And he was saying that outside of it, say this is marble or this is stone or whatever. But it says it is infused, because we've done different ritual, and it is infused with Krishna's energy himself. It is a replica of God. Prabhupada also says it's not actually God. He does say that in places. It's a replica. But he says it has all the features of God. Has all the features. And then a very beautiful analogy that Prabhupada gave that I really appreciated, as very common, is like you have a wire through which you run electricity, but it looks like copper, a copper stave, and you're looking at the copper stave and it means nothing to you. It could be iron, or it could be other metal. And you don't realize until you touch it that electricity is running through it and you get a shock. So matter is like that metal stave. That is matter. And spirit is what is hidden within, and it's not visible to the eye. And this is why I said again and again, you are not visible to anyone. You are existing both within and without, yet you are invisible to all. So there you go. So the first thing, and I wanted to bring this up because of a slightly controversial this topic a few months ago, but it's so ironic that it should be brought up. One of the first things Prabhupada said in his talk, he said, what is the problem of seeing Krishna in nature? He says, you have a flower, you see Krishna. He says, you hear a bird, that's Krishna. So what do you call that philosophy in Western thinking? Well, generally called pantheism. It's theism. Pan means throughout. So it's generally called, but we don't like that term very much because that term, I just want to explain this to you, the term has been used in an atheistic sense by many philosophers. There's no God, but there is a sense, because there's life, there is a sense of godliness, you see. But it doesn't refer to God directly. So it's impersonal, and but if you look at the Gita, there's some verses, some portions, where Krishna is compared to 40 different elements, all earthly elements, compared to everything. So that is Krishna, but that is not the Krishna we can see. It is the Krishna that we become aware of. Prabhupada says, only the Paramahamsa knows. Only Paramahamsa can know. And Paramahamsa, of course, is a person on the fourth state of the Turiya, fourth state of consciousness that is well above the 3 modes of material nature. So here, even though we may be in the mode of goodness and we're vegetarian or vegan and we follow all the rules and we don't break all the principles, it doesn't mean necessarily that you're a Paramahamsa. It means that we're en route to that state. So we follow what you call sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti means rules and regulations. But Prabhupada also points out that if sadhana bhakti doesn't lead to Raganuga bhakti, what is the point? Then again you take birth again and again and again. And of course in high form, maybe even in, I was going to say heaven, but in the spiritual world, not in spiritual world, but in higher planetary systems. But our point, the point that Prabhupada came, is to take us back home, back to Godhead. This is why the magazine's called Back to Godhead. Back home, back to Godhead. How often does Prabhupada use that place? Hundreds, if not thousands of times. And that is the point. And the point is, again and again, that's where we always were. If we were not always there, how would we go there? It's not a new domain. It's our actual domain. So here, you are beyond material conception, but you are, and you're not available to the foolish. Here it says again in 20. What does it say? Yeah, in 20. It says that you yourself descend to propagate the transcendental sides of devotional service into the hearts of advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators. As I said a few minutes earlier, isn't that an amazing statement? Because usually we don't glorify mental speculators. But here it says Krishna comes particularly to infuse devotional service to mental speculators, and footnote, who are purified by being able to discriminate between man and spirit. So this is the level of Brahman. So those transcendentalists who can distinguish between spirit and matter and have entered into the first, you can say, feature of Krishna, which is Brahman, he comes for them to bring them to a higher platform. And this is why also Prabhupada points out many times, unless we have the realization of Brahman, we cannot further on the path. First of all, you have to understand a certain oneness, and that oneness is only bliss, it's bliss. And then there's more an idea of manyness, and that is Paramatma. Paramatma in the heart of one. It is one, but it is separately seen in every living entity. So then we move from oneness to a kind of God-guided, or you can say secret manyness, and then we move to the one and the many. With Krishna himself, he's simultaneously one and the many, because it's already unpacked that he is in the many. He's the one that gives life. He's the life force. He's the Atman. And Atman and Paramatma are the same name. But one, like the 12 Saparana, one bird sits higher than the other. One bird is peaceful. They're both birds. That's another thing in the Upanishad. It's not like one is a crow and one is what do you call the elevated bird? Yeah, a dove or a swan. And not say swan. It's not like one is a crow and one is a swan. No. They are Dvav Suparno. Jugal. Very beautiful. And they're both sitting on the same tree, virtually on the same branch. But the direction is different. One is eating the fruits, the leaves, imbibing the fresh air or the bad air, pollution. And the other one is sitting there in completely peaceful, waiting for a connection from that lower bird. And this is, Prabhupada has mentioned this verse so many times because it's one of the very graphic images that we can understand. And I am that lower bird, always engaged in material activity. Even as a devotee, people are worried about mortgages and children going to school and degrees and rent and health issues, very important. So there's so many issues that obscure the mind from focusing on Krishna. This is why also it's so beautiful, like today there's a few, 1, 2, 3, there's five of us here and there may be a few people online. So we really appreciate that Sangha, and there's some in the kitchen of course. So we have a very small Sangha, but that Sangha is so meaningful because we can appreciate the palpatableness of actually being in touch with one another. If we're not in touch with one another, then Krishna cannot recognize us. Krishna's friends, they're all laughing together. They're like one body of bliss and play. Krishna's parents, he has, how many sets of parents? A couple of sets of parents. He relates to all of them. Krishna has, of course, many servants also. He relates to all of them. And then he has unlimited gopis. Sometimes it says 3 million that he relates to. Can you imagine? And it's just like I just remember Queen Kunti saying earlier, she was saying in the previous purport, was pointed out in the purport, that she sees Krishna sitting in front of her, he's sitting right in front of her, and that same Krishna is entering into the womb of Uttara to save the child. So there's obviously different. He doesn't enter in with 2 arms and diving in. We have to understand that force is on a subtle level. It's on a subtle level, but in front of her, he sits in a physical level. Psychologically, you can relate. Physically, you can relate. Touch, you can relate. Didn't she cook for him? There's not enough food, and she made, she made so much food available. So, Krishna is really a palpable entity. And of course, the best way to learn Krishna as a palpable entity is through deity worship. Then Krishna is palpable. There's the murti itself. You say itself, herself, himself, whatever you want to say. So, in that way, like the other day, a person that I recently know, he said, look at my deities. And I said, oh, you have deities at home? I have beautiful deities, even though the person didn't have a job that would suggest that he would have deities at home. You see what I mean? So you can see the inner mood and the outer mood can be different because of material circumstances. So we see the deity like that. We see, and when we serve the deity, we say, oh, Krishna, did I bring you the water yesterday or today? Oh, I better change it, At least that's me. I have water sitting in a special container, So they think, oh, Krishna, did I bring you your water today? So then we have different relations with the deity, but we see the deity as a person. And that deity, the divinity, rules over us. And we see it everywhere. And this is what activates us. What happens when we die? Spirit goes, spirit soul flies away. The body is exactly the same. It might have been physical disease that had caused the spirit to fly, but that spirit is not affected. This is why also the Gita teaches Najayate Mriyate Vapalachan. Very beautiful verse. One of the first verses that I encountered in the Gita that I found really meaningful. Najayate, no birth. Namriyate, no death. When? At any time. Najayate Mriyate Va Kadachin. At no time. So it begins, chapter 2 is the contents of the Gita summarized. It has all the teachings in there. And it ends with one of my favorite verses that, I quote many times, because especially in our world today, that should be our main slogan or logan, whatever you want to call it. Shantasya kutaha sukham. How shall there be happiness without peace? And that's the whole point. And that you see that throughout, and also then you see here, like for instance, in the Gita, for instance, Arjuna is encouraged to fight, and it's a very horrible fight. I think 30 million people died, whatever it is. It's completely bizarre, over the top. But in the end, as I pointed out many times, in the Mahabharata, it says everybody met on the banks of the Ganges and was family again, parivar. They were parivar, and this is confirmed. And because Bhagavad Gita is one chapter from the Mahabharata, it is confirmed that they all met in a higher region. But we can only accept it if we ourselves, if our mind and consciousness is in a higher region. Otherwise you say, oh, it's fiction, or you say it's a speculation, or you say it's a want to believe, whatever, you see. But when we transpose from sadhana bhakti to raganuga bhakti, all of these realizations are very clear. Nobody has to convince us. Nobody has to say, oh, you should see it like this. You are directly the seer by the mercy of the master, by the mercy of the guru, by the mercy of the sampradaya, by the mercy of the shastra. You can see by the mercy of the assembly. So this is why we study this together. And of course, we study it also on Zoom, it's also together. But when we study it in person, it has a certain acute effect. And that acute effect is very high. Just like, why do we give classes in person every day? Why don't we listen to Prabhupada every day? It's because when a person sits there and actually has, of course, studied the material, prepared for material, and giving realized understanding which is in harmony with the text and the purports, then it touches us. We think, oh, that person, he might have joined 20 years before me, but he seems very realized. You see what I mean? So then when we see each other progressing, then we also progress. Not when people say, oh, why do you do this? And you still do this after 10 years, and you're still attached to money, and you want to, have a beautiful house. Why don't you live under a tree? That's not our mood. These things are there, but they're only apropos to time and place. Like in India, it's possible to live under a tree, but here, can you live under a tree in the snow and the rain? It doesn't make any sense. You'll be dead very soon. Do we have caves to live in? Do we have, persons to bring us food? Do you daily have a beggar at the door coming for something? Do you not eat until the sages are fed? I mean, none of this, none of this. So we are in a so time and place, Prabhupada points out many times, time and place have to be applied according to these teachings. If you don't, you're taking it like also, even which was apropos 60 years ago, now how come all the children don't go to Gurukula? Actually, most of the children don't even become devotees. They're not even interested. So, but neither are they forced to go to some private school. We've had so many lawsuits. We have so many miserably, completely unqualified people teaching, you see. So, we don't focus on things that we cannot do. We focus on things that we're capable to do. Like, for instance, we may be able to build a new temple. This is very